All right, we'll call the Brookings County Commission meeting for September 6th to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, extend an invitation to a citizen to schedule a time on future commission agenda for an item not listed. Okay, seeing none. Approval of agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda or any changes? Okay, we'll approve the agenda. Consent agenda for the minutes, travel education requests, personnel action notices, human services report. Look for a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, the routine business, approval of claims. Look for a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the claims? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, regular business, or excuse me, department head reports. Robert, would you like to start us off, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
August 29th to September 1st, I was in Emmitsburg, Maryland, attending a functional needs and emergency management planning, which was a good springboard from the exercise that we held last year when FEMA come out with the National Exercise Division. So as we look at our ordinances later in the year, we'll have to keep all that information in mind on what we learned, on what I learned. And September 8th, this Thursday, we do have a PPCC meeting over at the East Fire Hall. You're welcome to. Monday through Thursday of next week, me and Richard Hagen will be in Aberdeen. We've got our South Dakota Office of Emergency Management Conference. We got training for the first couple of days, and then the second 2 days are briefings and meetings and things like that. September 20 to 25th, I'm going to be on vacation. I have to look at my schedule to see if I'll be at the commission meeting or not, but if not, I'll try to send you a written report ahead of time so you can check anything on that. September 27th, we do have our full-scale exercise, and the planning on that's getting to be pretty good right now. We'll have to work with all the Emergency Operations Center participants and department heads, and I think I briefed you last time on that, but we are going to actually go out to Volga and set the Emergency Operations Center trailer up and just see if we can power it up and make contact with Pier, and just like we would have to do in case of a long-term emergency. And full-scale exercise, an exercise is designed to see, it's best to make mistakes in an exercise, and it isn't a real-time event, so we'll just see what happens there. Our IPAWS is active. It become active as of September 1st. We have had 2 training sessions through the webinar type things where they interact with us over the computer screens, and that was Mr. Plowman, Mr. Hagen, and myself. Today we had a claim. We paid for IPAWS actually for the year of 2016, but since we didn't get our FEMA qualifications until just now, we negotiated and we paid for 2 years, and our contract will be good until September 1st, 2018, which means we didn't get charged for the year that we did not use it. So we're on schedule right now. I did obtain permission from the local emergency planning committee this year for the 2017 bill to pay that with LEPC money. Next year, we'll have to wait and see, and if something comes up where we need the local emergency planning committee money elsewhere, then I'll come through the normal budget criteria and request money through the county through the emergency management budget. And last but not least, I want to thank the community. The 727/DAV had a big poker run this weekend, and 634 people came into the city of Brookings and participated. And from the DAV, we do appreciate that. Any questions? Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
On the first, I did go over to Huron with Don Bren, where he was presented the Veteran of the Year Award. It was a very good ceremony. The governor did speak a little bit, but the award was actually presented to him by the past commander of the national commander of the DAV, Gene Murphy, who happens to be a guy from White, South Dakota. Anyway, I will be gone to the welfare conference in Sioux Falls on the 12th to the 13th, and we'll be serving at the banquet there. And then on the 14th through the 16th, I will be with the Enlisted Association at their national convention. As far as numbers, I went back 2 weeks instead of the whole month that I was gone, because there's a lot of numbers to count. I use little tick marks. Anyway, the calls in been staying pretty constant. This time was 95, which was slightly down since I was at a conference in Pierre for part of that. Calls out are way down at 67. Again, I was in Pierre at the Veterans Conference there, State Veterans Conference. Walk-ins were 12 veterans, and on the welfare side there were 14. Part of the reason that the welfare side was so high was because we did have some more funerals in that time.
Oh, good, thank you. Morning, Vicki.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just to kind of give you an update, we did receive the centrally assessed utilities, which we will be approving the provisional budget, but for the adopted budget, we will have a few changes. The good news is we had 34,767 growth in utilities, or excuse me, the utilities increased, but the growth decreased. So we were at 2.66% for growth before the new utilities. Now we're at 2.60. So the tax dollar decrease with the growth decrease is $7,011. So it isn't going to be too much. The good news is the levy will drop from 4.125 to 4.072. So we will have a decrease there. So that's good news. And we will be working on updating the budget so we can get that done. Stacy and I will be doing that. And we have two, let me find it here, two discretionary formulas that are on centrally assessed utilities. One is Northwestern Corporation that has a property located in Brookings, and they are on the third year of the discretionary formula, so they will have 2 years left. And the amount that we deducted from that is $9,488. So that will be getting closer to being done. And also the Basin Electric with the Deer Creek Station, we this year are on formula year 4. So next year we will be off the discretionary formula. So that will make some difference in our utilities too, because we deduct now $26 million for the discretionary. So that is getting close to the end. So any questions anybody has? Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Talk to you in a little bit. Good morning, Sheriff.
Morning. Just some quick, the jail statistics was taken on Friday. At Friday, we had 41. I think over the weekend we was up to 46. Now this morning, Bart, I think we're at 39, and 38 are felonies. I only have one misdemeanor on a 24/7 violation, so there's 38 in there this morning. And I think we have some sentencing today too, so hopefully we can get a few, make some more room in there. And so, but the jail's been steady, been busy. We've had some emergency committals last week also, so been busy. The weekend was busy too with the injury accidents. The Highway Patrol is taking those accidents, that accident west of Volga. And then they towed the vehicles in, and then one of the vehicles started on fire and burned up that vehicle, and then another vehicle, not the one that was involved in the accident. There's only one that burnt up that was involved in the accident, but we had 3 or 4 other vehicles in there, and it just brings up that I've been kind of at the state to see if they would do an impound, because actually all the vehicles that are in our impound right now are state vehicles. And it's hard for me to say take them someplace else when they're going to investigate the accident and so forth. And so they called me, and I said, no, that's fine, tow them to our impound. The other vehicles are drug forfeitures, which is part of my department too. So brings up a point. I told Dick maybe he's ready to kick me out there. That space is better than nothing because it's between 2 Quonsets. It's the 2 old weed Quonsets, and they put there, and there's some space in between. I don't know how wide it is. Dick, how wide is that? Probably 60 feet, and then as long as the buildings. We put fence on both ends, and it works. It's better than nothing to secure. The problem is when you tow into the middle, and then you bring wreck cars in. We got to hire a wrecker to come, or a lot of times Dick's people will drag them out so we can get the middle vehicles out. So it's really not the best. Now the state's talking about putting some space out there, and Leanne was just asking me about if I had a policy on battery cables and that, and I really don't. But these cars were mangled so bad, I bet they didn't even think about disconnecting the batteries. But I'm sure nothing else is disconnected out there either. So it's a good point that we should make sure the battery cables are disconnected as best we can. But I don't know, maybe I should talk to the state and see if it's a minimum that maybe we can go in and help them build a fence out there or something, and haul my vehicles out there too if we help them a little bit on the fence. So I'll see if it's going to see what they're going to do, and then I'll report back. Unless you guys have some, there's some things that we want to put inside for evidence. Normally, not wrecked cars go inside, even though we don't want to protect them for the black box and things like that. But normally, wrecked cars we don't need to put inside. But there are occasions we get a stolen vehicle that we'd want to put inside, which I have some space for that. But it's probably not the best. Beta was pretty excited. It's close to their building, and they had 6 new buses or whatever it was in their building. So, and I don't blame them. We lucked out. Somebody heard a small explosion, and then there evidently was a Beta employee that was around there too. So the fire department got there rather quickly, and minimal damage to the buildings, don't you think, Dick? Probably. So, and the vehicles that are in there on the drug forfeitures were not damaged. So, if you have any questions, what do you think? Is the commission kind of agreeable? Maybe we should look at another place for an impound, or we still could use that for county impounds, but I mean, something that my people tow in that I need to keep, we could probably use that space unless Dick doesn't want me there anymore. But, maybe I should just work with the state and see if we can work out a deal with them to get things out there.
Do you have any idea, have you ever thoughts of where that would be? Is it something that they already own out where their building is?
Yeah, it'd be out at DOT. And I think there's been some discussion, because we've had this discussion before. One of the other vehicles that burnt up is a highway patrol vehicle it's been there for 2 years, and we've been kind of working with them to get that out of there, and we just haven't done it. Or they haven't come and know what to do with it yet. So,
well, it's not like we have ample room out
no,
there. We already are struggling for enough room for everything that Dick needs, and like you said, it's not exactly a desirable situation what you have to do. So yes, I think it would be a good idea to talk to the state and see if they could move their stuff. And then the other thing I think is to develop a policy where those cables are unhooked before they go in.
Yep.
It seems to me, I just can't imagine the state has, I don't know why they're dumping them on us.
Yeah, some of it is, it's not always and some is and some isn't. Is just that sometimes if they're taking the accidents, then I hate to be when they have no place to take them, so then here they're going to write the accident, so then I take it. On the drug forfeitures, it's the three departments, the state and the police department, and, you know, the police department doesn't have a place either. Otherwise, majority of the time, we can rely on just towing them to whatever towing service it is to their impound. But on certain things, we got to keep it. And that probably brings up another, to talk with the police chief and see if all, you know, they would, because they have no place to tow either, other than an impound. And sometimes we'll take the police department's stolen vehicles because they don't have any place to put it. So, you know, between us agencies, maybe we can come with one place and tow. So I'll work on that.
Okay.
And I think this incident brings up a good opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, we just brought your car in here and it exploded. And so we got to figure out a way to if we're going to take yours, figure out maybe we can jointly put something together. So probably a good time to start the discussion on that stuff too. I'm not saying, I don't think you should kick them out and say, okay,
No.
you're done.
No,
You're
no.
not helping you or
But
anything like that.
We'll try to figure it out.
Probably
Yeah.
good time to start the discussion on
Yep,
figuring something
yep.
out.
And Stephanie, you are right. At times that does happen. What you a couple weeks ago when we talked about the impound. So everything kind of, like you said, Ryan, everything's kind of coming together. This is a good time to
Yep.
open up that discussion. So
But we would like to keep the good relationship that we have with those other agencies. I have another, issue, and it's kind of related to this, in that I was driving past the highway department over the weekend on my way to the airport, and I saw a vehicle that came out of the gate, and maybe we don't have a policy on this. I think we should have. They came out of the gate, and then they drove away, and that gate stays open for a considerable amount of time after you drive through it. For example, at the airport, if you have a pass where you can get in and out of the gate, you are required, in order to keep your pass, to sit there till that gate closes for security reasons, so nobody goes in that gate. And I just wondered if that was an issue for law enforcement out at the highway department, if that's something we should be talking about.
It's very slow, for one.
It is slow.
And I think the reason it is so slow is because in inclement weather, it has quite a bit of force. However, with beta going and coming all the time, any vehicle that approaches from the inside and gets within 5 feet of the gate automatically opens, and on the outside they use the keypad. But the reason it goes so slow is they usually keypad it, then they walk around, get in their bus, get buckled in, and then by that time the gate's usually open and they drive through. And it's probably open for 15, 20 seconds before it starts to close, and it would take probably the same amount of time for it to close.
There'd be no problem with another vehicle driving in there. I wasn't
Oh, no.
saying,
No.
I wasn't saying we should change our gate. I was thinking we should maybe have a policy like they have at the airport. When you open the gate, before you drive away, you make sure that it's shut so that nobody enters the facility that's not supposed to be there. And the vehicle that I saw was not a beta vehicle. So,
yeah, no,
okay, just throwing that out for consideration, because there is a lot of stuff there, and if there's evidence there and other things that we need to be considered with access, people could drive right in. Somebody drives away when that gate's open, you could drive right in. So,
yeah, I'll visit with Dick and see if we come up with something too. So, thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks. Morning, Richard.
I'll touch on the stuff Marty did later on in my report. As far as bridge updates, the bridge on 25 is just waiting for decking. I haven't been out there this morning. Maybe they did some over the weekend. The bridge on Highway 27 that has the broken piling, Holloway has not been out there to fix it, but it is scheduled hopefully this week with the rain. Hopefully we'll get it done. Again, on that bridge, that's absolutely just a Band-Aid, so we're going to have to think through and get something going on that in the near future as soon as I get some better ideas of what we'll be looking at as far as a repair or replacement. The box culverts scheduled for 2016 have been started, and hopefully they'll go pretty quick. Again, with the water, we'll give them a little bit of difficulty on two of the three. On the bridge on 476, we got a call. The maintainer blade had caught that on the township road, so we went out and pounded it down. We're gonna have to come up with a different flange on the end. We'll get that done today. Still no news on the bridges north of Bruce. They haven't even contacted me as far as a pre-construction meeting yet, so that is getting me a little bit nervous. But hopefully they'll schedule it in the near future. The shop in Sinai is going good. It'll be he's taking like 3 weeks off to do some other jobs. Then he'll be back. The chip sealing is complete. I talked to Geotech about their bridge, or the bridge work and the pilings, and why there wasn't a better communication between them and Halmy Construction. They also expressed some concern that they wished Halmy would have been a little better at communicating their concerns. I don't think they thought it was going to be as time-consuming as it was. However, what Geotech said, that's what time they had up there. And then the bridge demonstration I went to up by Aberdeen was very interesting. It's not as big a savings as I had hoped, but one thing, it goes quickly. They're pre-constructed and they bring them in panels, and so the whole bridge can fit right on one truckload. And it's a little more involved. I was hoping it would be something that maybe in-house workers could have a bigger part in, but most of the in-house work was hauling materials for backfill and gravel surfacing and stuff like that. But in a low use area, it has merit in the right place. Give you an idea, this was an 85-foot bridge, and they'll have probably $277,000 into it by the time they're done. But again, that's using a lot of in-kind services, so roughly you'd be looking at maybe only $30,000 to $40,000 less than a regular bridge construction project in that application. Everyone would be different. And then around the shop, we were going to be working to pave and install a drainage swale between Beta and our new truck shed to get the drainage to work better and get rid of the mess that it creates for our vehicles coming and going. I got word finally last week from the railroad crossing people that they're hoping to begin the last week of September, and I would guess that they'll be pretty much on time for that, so as it gets closer, we'll have a little bit of involvement on there. The fire Friday night, again, it's pretty close quarters out there, and fortunately there was nothing in the buildings that caught fire. However, we use them for cold storage. Quite a few things in there are flammable, tires. Bob has some sandbags and bales. Most of the damage that was done was to the sheriff's department items that were there. But the biggest concern when Marty called me was making sure that we weren't going to get a lot of people in danger for explosion or flammable gases and stuff like that. They're in the other building where our oil patcher and the propane tank and that never got close. Also, a lot of our materials that we put in there, broom cores and stuff like that, that would be extremely flammable, but yet, fortunately, it was salvaged. I guess on his aspect of finding things or another area for them, one concern that we do have that Marty didn't touch on is when stuff, especially if like DCI and stuff brings cars out there on a drug thing or whatever, we always have people coming, I want to get my car back. They told me my car's out here. And we want to be responsible and not give things back or whatever, but it makes you on edge. And most of the time, those people come out, they're glad to hear they're there to get their car and they want to talk to them or what have you. But as far as what Marty was saying, let's say someone comes to get the car that's right in the middle of everything, we go out there and either with a loader or a piece of machinery and either got to drag it out of the way or move it so that they can get the car they want out. And it's an uncomfortable feeling because usually if there's something wrong, even if it didn't happen in that instance, there can be finger pointing and uncomfortable emotions going on when we think we're just doing what's best for everybody. And the other thing that is awkward about it when they do get their vehicles, some of the people probably, and I hate to sound like I'm judging, but some people don't look overly responsible and very stable, and you really get uncomfortable when you're out there kind of by yourself and have to deal with some of this. So basically that's our other concern, and obviously Marty touched on the idea that if they had a yard of their own, would be a much nicer scenario. The other thing that could have been a little bit worse is in the winter, Beta always parks, we gravelled that for them, so between the Quonset and their building, they park their buses there so that they have more room for the ones that have to go inside. So that could have been a little close for comfort too if they would have been parked there, but I think they got everything moved just fine. And last, the blade that we surplused will be sold on Iron Planet on the 22nd of September. If you follow business news at all, you'll know that just recently Iron Planet was bought out by Ritchie Brothers, which is a large equipment auction business that will do wonderful. But however, our blade is strictly on contract with Iron Planet. It has no effect on how it'll be dealt with or whether it will be sold or not. So that takes care of that without any complications. And other than that, unless you have some questions, one thing that I would like to just briefly say is I'm extremely proud and happy of my crew. When that fire started, it smoked the electricity, and so you couldn't really see, and if you went through the walk-through doors, you know, it made it very uncomfortable for the firemen, obviously, and so they tore the front door off to get access. But with my people, I'm a real stickler on organization and neatness, and at least when people went into that building, it was not them stumbling over 1,000 different things to find their way around and this and that. And, you know, we have tires, we have Bob's portable generator for emergencies, the sandbags. There's a lot of stuff in there that without a conscious effort to keep it organized and in place, it can look like a jungle in a hurry. So I really got to thank my guys for that, and they're starting to see the value once in a while after they get done grumbling at me for making them do it. But that showed right there the value of it. So other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. Questions? All right. Thank you. All right. We will move on to regular business. And so number 8, action to declare the following items of surplus county property: snowing model 140H surplus for parts, 3 used broom cores to sell in house for $75, price established by 2014 auction.
Move to approve.
Is there a
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Wyseth.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, moving right along. Number 9, Commission Director report.
It's part of my report in your packet. I included the agenda for the SDACC Fall Convention. That's already coming up next week, Monday and Tuesday down in Sioux Falls. All of you are registered for that. 2 rooms, the nights of, just for that Monday night, I have rooms for Commissioners Miller and Jensen. The rest, I'd heard that we're going to commute back and forth since it's in Sioux Falls. So if that's still the plan, good, but that's just want to remind you that that's coming up. It also enclosed the 2016 proposed resolution and policy statements for SDACC. These are always voted on. They have 2 general sessions. Actually, just have 1 general session. The first is you caucus as a with your Sioux Valley Commissioners group, your 8-county group, on Monday evening, kind of one of the last things of the day, and discuss the resolutions and policy statements that are going to be voted on. Then you vote on Tuesday at the last general session. That's the last thing of the day on Tuesday. Brookings County gets 1 vote on those items. So I would recommend that you as a board today take a look at those items. I think the resolutions board, I can bring it up here on my computer, but I think they only passed, the resolutions committee only passed a couple of them, it looked like. But that way you're not trying to get together as a group out there and trying to make some, come to a consensus out there on how you want to vote on Tuesday. Let's see here, bring them up. This first one that the resolutions committee recommended do pass as amended is Resolution 2016-5 to encourage the state of South Dakota to continue working toward Medicaid expansion. That's the first one. And I know there will be some additional discussion when you kind of caucus with your 8-county group, but I guess as a board, would you like to discuss these? There's just a couple of them. I think there's 1 resolution, 1 policy statement was all the resolutions committee passed coming out of their meeting.
We have time, and I think we need to discuss this, because we need to know how we're going to vote when we go caucus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are you saying yes to discuss or yes on the first one?
Yes to both.
Yeah.
But we
Yes.
do have time. We do have
Yeah.
scheduled agenda item at
At
9:30,
9:30.
and we
I
have
think you
plenty of time.
touched on
So,
this in the Madison meeting too, did they? No.
okay, so we need to get a consensus to there, and Commissioner Weiss said yes.
On number 1.
And we got enough yeses on that one, so I think we've got that one.
Okay. And then the next one is the resolutions committee do pass a policy statement to provide for a 2-year study by the South Dakota legislature of setting uniform statewide standards for public defender services.
I'm curious as to whether Abby's heard anything about this, because this is a big county bill. This bill, I shouldn't say bill, resolution is what I'm trying to say. We don't do a public defender system in Brookings County. Most of the 3rd Judicial Circuit does not. There are some exceptions. Most counties in the state, and I'm not sure whether the legislature would do that or if that would be a UJS thing. And I think we should be opposed to this myself, unless they clarified what they're looking at. If they were going to study indigent defendant costs, that'd be a different thing. But setting statewide standards for public defender services when most counties don't have a public defender, why would we be doing that?
I have to agree. When I read that, I thought, what? That doesn't affect most of the counties, probably Minnehaha and Pennington.
Well, now, Coddington and Beetle have public defender office. They have contracts in our circuit. Those are the 2 in our circuit. And I think Aberdeen has one. But other than that, I'm unaware of which other counties would have it.
Right, but so how is it going to affect us?
Yeah, it's
It's not, but, so does that mean we kill it? Is this going to help out the larger counties? Is this a benefit for them, and it doesn't affect us that don't have them?
do we want to have statewide standards for public defender services that would require us to do something that we're not already doing on indigent defense? I don't think so. If they changed what they're looking at is paying the cost of indigent defense for criminal action, that'd be different. But coming up with a statewide standard for public defender services, what does that mean?
Well, I lean a little bit, Commissioner Krogman, is that if it doesn't affect us. Now, it's a study, and keep in mind it's a legislative study, so they could go in there to study evergreen trees and come up with aspen by the time they're done. And I guess this goes back to one of my complaints when I'm going to be gone, is that I think we ought to have statewide class counties, because some big counties like us have completely different problems than Meade County or Butte County or whatever it is. And hopefully that'd be an opportunity. It's just a study, and that we keep an eye on it and protect our interests. But I don't like to get in the way, whether it's that county down there with a lot of Native American land in there. I don't want to get in the way of anything. As long as it doesn't hurt the way we do things, I'm all for helping those counties out to solve their problems in their county. And currently, yeah, statewide's kind of spooky because every county's different. But I don't have a huge problem because it's a study, and it's a legislative study, so there'll be plenty of time for input.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I'm coming from too. I mean, because if we have an issue come up and we want to do a study, and I would hate to have all the other counties say, well, it doesn't affect us, so why are you doing this? No, I don't want it. It's like, well, we have a problem. We'd like to get this going. And it's like, well, it's not our problem. We're voting no. I'd rather have them go, you know what? Yeah, let's do a study on it. We'll see what comes out. It's not affecting us. Go ahead and see what comes out of it, and that's fine. And that's kind of, like I said, where I'm at with that part.
Except for what I'm saying is, they're only looking at the part that's a problem for them. We only have a certain number of resources for studies. We don't have unlimited dollars for the state to do that. They're looking at the part that's of benefit to them. They're not looking at the issues that we've got based on what this says. And unless we understand exactly what it is that they're going to study and why isn't broad enough to encompass the issues that we have with that, I have a problem with how it's worded.
Public defender services don't apply to the vast majority of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how this study is beneficial.
I get, as much as I make fun of the legislature, I trust that the legislators that will be on this study will represent those counties and make sure they're exempt, and be a perfect opportunity to set up an example of different rules for different counties, because I think that's one of the things that in my 4 years, short years, is that how we have a statewide system in place for commissions when we have very different counties, whether geographic, demographic, and it's kind of a blanket system. And but I guess I trust the legislators to take this and put it in proper motion. I just get tired, and maybe this isn't the one to say with this too, but I get tired of counties getting in the way of other counties improving their situation when it's something that they're not going to be affected by. But so I guess I have more faith in the system, but that it'll get sorted out.
Yeah. Abby, do you have any input on this?
We haven't really heard much about this yet. The States Attorneys Association Board, it hasn't been brought to our attention or any input sought there. We normally kind of start our efforts into the next legislative session about this time, so I'd anticipate we would probably be hearing something in the near future, but we have not, the state entity has not taken any official position on this.
And this, your agreement, it would not affect us at this time, this study? Or could you see this branching out into, the study branching out or have ramifications with us if they go along with this study?
Well, it says they're trying to set a statewide uniform system, so it would certainly affect us whatever's ultimately decided. Right now, we use a court-appointed system, so every attorney just signs up on a list, and they go through a rotation of serving for indigent defendants. So, like Tom said, it's a study at this point, but ultimately, if it leads to legislation, it appears it would be something that would impact us.
And it's a standards for public defender services, and currently we don't have
Right.
public defender.
Other than the minimum cost that's set that we have to pay, we aren't, I guess, mandated what structure we have to use. That's why we use a court-appointed system instead of a public defender system.
And this would mandate our structure. And this is not the first time that this has been brought forth. This, one other time since I've been a commissioner, this has been brought up and was shot down. Because it could mandate then that we would go with the public defender system.
Really? You think that's what it is?
Yeah,
That they would mandate us to do?
they could.
I think this is a study for
It
standards,
says
whoever
it
has
says it's going to affect all counties.
Is there, I guess, anything that we would want to, I mean, at this meeting, at this vote, is there anything that we would want to put as an amendment to it that would narrow it down? That's saying, you know, we're for this, but we don't want this to affect all counties? Is there something that says that this is just a study on the counties that currently have public defender? Would that make a difference?
I don't know, you know, it's something in our caucus, we certainly could discuss this, and maybe that's what we need to do, because we're a little bit unsure about all of this, and so maybe when we're in our caucus with the 8-county group, you know, maybe somebody in there has some more clarification for us. I don't know. But to me, I think, you know, if something came out of the study, it would be to mandate that all counties do it the same way. So, you know, I'm not opposed to discussing this in our caucus and asking those questions, if that's what we would like to do.
You know, and I'm not interested in the mandate of that coming out of this study by any means, and I'm not voting for that because of that. I just, obviously, the larger few counties are dealing with issues with public defenders, and they need some work on it. And this is a study to allow them to work on that. And like Commissioner Weiss has said, you know, just don't throw a roadblock, because we're going to have another one here of other counties with so much government land that they can't raise funds. And so are we going to turn around and say, well, that doesn't affect us, so we're going to go against that? And it's like, no, they have different issues than we do. And whether you're larger or smaller county, we want to get in the way from them trying to solve those issues. And I understand where it gets to be an issue, and it says counties affected by the resolution. It says all counties. So that's where my thought process was, well, maybe can we amend this to say this doesn't affect all counties, this affects only counties with public defender systems, that's what the study is for. You know, I don't know. I don't know if...
It's a question that can be asked in our caucus, and our caucus can attempt to do that.
Yep.
So I would suggest then that we all be at the caucus and we all sit together so that when something's decided, we know how the majority is going to vote.
Yep.
If you please.
Okay. Yep.
I won't be there.
And I am not going to be there. I have another commitment. I have to be back in Brookings at 6 o'clock for.
Okay, then
I'll
you
be
should
there.
have left it up to us.
Yep.
Can
Well, I was just
can we
looking-
give
I-
you a proxy? You know how I feel.
I was just following up with Ryan's suggestion of amendment. So immediately I started cruising around looking for what I'd want amended. Well, it says standards, not standard. So maybe they're not encouraging just one standard. It's maybe one for different needs of each county. They're just trying to pay for this operation. And I'm sympathetic with what Minnehaha County, Lincoln, great. They're boom cities in America and make South Dakota proud, but boy, they got their hands full down there, and it's a whole different. I'm very understanding of, and probably Rapid City's got the same thing, but I had to count.
Okay, well, we'll discuss this at the, there and try to come up with a one vote idea. Larry, you might have to do some research on this. You might be the.
Well, they gave us some background when we were down in Madison, you know, when
okay.
they talked about it.
Okay.
We didn't decide anything. We
Really? And I wasn't there, so I
We talked about the newspaper deal longer than we did.
Right. I mean, he just went through them, and that's what's going to be upcoming, is what he said at the fall meeting, so.
Okay, well, another one we have to discuss
that
here?
was it,
Or just those two?
Everything else was tabled,
Okay.
looks like, so.
which is very unusual. This
It
is
is.
really, really short.
Yeah, usually we have a handful or more
Yes.
items to
Yes.
vote on, and so, yeah, the Resolutions Committee, be curious to see what that discussion was or how that came about. But moving on, Hobo Day is coming up, October 22nd. I think you all received probably a personal invitation to be a part of the parade. Since it's an election year, I didn't, what do you want to do? Do you want to go together in the parade as a group, or did you want to do things separately because I know it's an election year, and
I think
sometimes
we
on
leave-
election years you want to do that.
I think we leave that up to Ryan. If you want to go as a group, we will do it. But if you want to go on your own, that is fine. The rest of us can be in a car.
Yeah, I'm going to go on my own.
And
On
I
your
think
own?
that's wise to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Election year. If it wasn't an election year,
Right.
it'd be a different story.
Is it okay with the rest of you four if
I'm going to miss him.
I don't know if he's going to go.
I'm going to miss one or two of his kids being along, but I'll struggle
okay.
with you three.
Well,
So Stacy, you'll set that up then?
Yes.
just
Thank
tell
you.
them that we need a car for the four of us and Ryan needs a separate one.
Well,
Whatever.
yes, I'll let them know that.
Okay.
Are you going to contact them then yourself too?
Yeah.
But I'll set up the group thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, as part of my report, the general fund surplus analysis information was included. I know Vicki had that as part of her report at the last meeting I think just for July. The August information wasn't available yet, so that's included in my report. A couple other things I handed out this morning. There's information on the health screenings that will be held out at convention next week. If you're interested in those, you can do those on an individual basis. And then there was also, we received a letter from the Kiwanis seeing if there's any interest in the county as a county having a membership in Kiwanis. And as you read through the letter, actually I just read through it this morning, it said you would pick a representative from the county to attend the weekly meetings. Membership fee, there's a one-time $50 new membership cost, and then it's $130 quarterly, so $520 for the year. If it's something that you're interested in the county as a whole participating in, or if you want to just leave it up to individuals who want to be a member of that organization, I think that's, I know we've had that in the past. There have been, county, whether it's commissioners or employees, just do it as individuals. But
I thought it was individuals, but
this is, I think, kind of something new, something different, I think, I've never seen this before, being asked to be a member as a county as a whole.
I think it should be up to individuals.
And I got an individual letter for it asking for me to member, and I can decide if I want to, I guess. I'm not sure we need to put taxpayer dollars to be members of a club. If we personally want to, we can spend our own money to be a member.
Right.
But I'm not sure we need to spend taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments on that? Or
Tom's, yep.
I'm with you.
good?
Okay. Upcoming dates. This Wednesday, there's a couple of things. You were invited to East River Electric's 2016 annual meeting. It's at 9 o'clock Wednesday morning down in Sioux Falls at the Best Western Ramkota. Also, this Wednesday, the local conservation district meeting starts at 8:15 this Wednesday morning. If you are interested in attending that, that's at their offices. And then down the road a little ways, I know Michelle's been working on this. Tuesday, October 18th, you're scheduled to attend the Novita tour. That's at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, October 18th. And again, as I said before, the SDACO Fall Convention down at Sioux Falls, down at the Sheridan, is Monday and Tuesday next week. So that is all I have, unless you have any other questions from me.
It's not a question, I guess. I just Commissioner Pierce, did you have a chance to go through the association's policy statements, deletions, and corrections? It's in her packet, and there was one on liens, and
I did not, I missed that, Tom. Where are you looking at?
at the back of the resolutions, there's the changes that this was discussed at the
Which
meeting.
number is it on there?
That's the last one, the
Okay.
one on the liens. What basically, they must have gone through their resolutions, or not resolutions, their policy statement, and they found out, why say this when a lot of these things are now law? It's like saying redundancy. We support a law like this. Well, there is a law like this. So they kind of went through, most of those were in that category, but they got rid of things that they felt were no longer necessary to be part of the organization's policies. But you're an expert on liens. You have a great deal. That one really grabbed my attention. So I don't have a problem one way or the other, but just.
Will we vote on all these changes?
No, not all of them.
I think it'll be put together as one vote.
That's what I was wondering.
That's the way I kind of remember how it was presented, but they went through these and at Clark. Where were we? Clark? Madison. That's right. They went through those, and there wasn't a great deal of discussion. It was basically, they explained that due to the changes in law, it didn't make any sense to have it part of their policy. But so I left there satisfied with it, but I just didn't know if you guys
Let's
were.
look these over a little bit, and if we have some concerns, we can discuss them there during the day there. Okay. Anything else for Stacy? No. All right. Deputy State's Attorney report.
Nothing to report today.
All right. Commissioner reports. We've got a few more minutes here, so let's see if we can work through those, and then we'll do the public hearing. Leanne, if you could start, please.
On August 24th, I was at the active shooting program and the conservation tour with all of you. We also had all attended the executive session on August 31st. On August 24th and August 31st, 2 weeks in a row, we had a Lake Park District Subcommittee meeting. We're moving forward on that portion of our review of the ordinances. And right now, we think we're looking pretty good on our draft. We're waiting for a first district to provide us with some information on wind towers and solar panels, whether or not we want individuals to have the opportunity to use those types of items in the Lake Park District. On August 29th, we all did that veterinary lab tour. On August 29th, I attended the City Comprehensive Master Plan Advisory meeting. And the reason I have to be back when we have our association meeting is we have another meeting at 6 o'clock that night with President Dunn from SDSU, and he wanted to talk to us about SDSU and the impact on the city's master comprehensive plan, so I need to attend that. On September 1st, I attended the governmental affairs meeting with the chamber. The tentative dates for the forums are going to be October 1st for the county commissioners and the state's attorneys, and October 15th for the legislators. And that was what we talked about as a committee. Now they're checking with everybody that's going to participate and see if they can be there. So those are the tentative dates. They'd be here in this room. They'd start at 9 o'clock on those 2 Saturdays, and Carrie Brech will serve as the moderator for both groups. And then we've got Brookings Day at the Capitol set for 2017. That'll be January 18th of 2017, and that would be my report.
Okay. Any questions? All right, Larry?
On the 23rd, we had commission, then we did the active shooter training. 24th, I had conservation tour. We got back from the conservation tour. I had a meeting with Beta. And then on the 29th, we did an animal science tour up on campus. Very good tour. And on the 30th, we had a jail expansion committee. We had our interviews. We've kind of narrowed it down, and we should have a recommendation at our next commission meeting to hire an architect. So, and that's all I did yesterday. Visited out at the state fair, the new facility in the 4-H building out there.
Stephanie?
August 23rd, I attended the active shooter training, which wasn't exactly what I anticipated it would be. I thought it was going to be to this building specific, not the whole schmeal that we already had been through. So I was a little disappointed in that. August 24th, we attended the conservation tour, which was very, very interesting, as it always is, and very informative. August 25th was domestic abuse. They're looking for an overnight advocate, and so that was what a lot of our discussion was on. On August 30th, we did the architecture interviews, as Commissioner Jensen said, and we have narrowed it down, so if they accept, we will have one. I attended the executive session on August 31st. That day, I also toured the new 4-H hall at the fair, and on September 1st, I attended the gathering at the State Fair where Mr. Bren was given his award, and it was really a good. The director of the Veterans Home in Hot Springs was the keynote speaker, and the governor was kind of second. And it was a very interesting. He gave a history of the Veterans Home, and it was very, very interesting. And I found it funny that the very first director of that nursing home was called a commandant. That was the most interesting thing I took out of there, I guess. And that's all I have.
Okay. Tom?
Okay, active shooter conservation tour, which I thought was pretty good, how precision farming may end up improving conservation, and that was a little, for a guy that's been a little put down by the lack of conservation trends, that was a light, a ray of hope, and I was very impressed with that. Diagnostic tour, executive session, but the hospital meeting, the thing there is they're committed to moving to White. And remember the building that Randy Hansen was talking about? Hopefully if that comes to fruition, they want to stay there with an office. So hopefully that happens up in White.
All right. I had the same thing. I had the active shooter, the conservation tour, the vet science tour, executive session, and then I was at the State Fair on Saturday the 3rd. So that's about it. So, okay, we have any questions or anything there? We'll go back to our 9:30. It is 9:30 for our scheduled agenda item, and it is a public hearing on the 2017 provisional budget. And so we will open it up to the public for anybody who proponents want to speak in favor of the provisional budget. Are there any proponents? Any proponents? Okay, seeing none. Any opponents like to speak on behalf of the 2017 provisional budget? Any opponents? Okay, hearing none, we will declare the public hearing closed and open it up to action to the board. There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution, the 2017 provisional budget for Brookings County, South Dakota. Any discussion?
Well, I think it should be noted that we know that there will be some changes. And I don't know, do you do those now before the budget the provisional is published? No.
No.
The provisional was published the last couple of weeks. It's been in the
Oh,
papers.
that's right, it's been there already.
So we need to
will.
approve this as published
Okay, as
today.
published, okay.
Over the course of the next couple of weeks, before the 20th, the annual budget will be approved on September 20th. That's your next meeting in 2 weeks. Between now and then, Vicki and I will be working on up all of the changes that have been discussed. At this point, mostly dealing with like the juvenile detention and maybe some court-appointed items. We'll take a look at it closely. I guess my question to you as a group, do you want to meet before the 20th to have more of an in-depth budget discussion to really look at it again and make those changes, or do you want Vicki and I just to take from the discussions that have already taken place and bring the changes to you? Last year, what we did, we made some changes during the hearing, and that got very confusing for us. It's not that it can't be done, but that it does kind of add an extra wrinkle for Vicki and I trying to get a clean document before you as we're making changes that day. So if we can, and those changes still, no matter what changes between the provisional and the annual, they have to be read into the minutes. So we'll have a document that lists out all of the changes from what it was published as in the provisional to what it will be in the annual, and those have to be read into the minutes before the annual budget is adopted on the 20th. But I guess I'm just asking if you want to, as a group, get together one more time probably next week, or do you want Vicki and I just to work on this?
Everybody's thoughts.
Do you have a running list now of what those things were? That I mean, I have in my mind what some of the things that we have been talking
Vicki's
about.
Since I've been out, I think Vicki's been keeping that list.
I've got a list. I don't have it with me, but we didn't set a specific dollar amount, that we wanted to increase. So I think we should look at especially the juvenile detention and see, because we added, I think, 80,000 onto that, for the provisional, but I think that we are looking that we may have to add more onto that, and we have not set any dollar amounts.
I myself, when you said, what's the opinion, we've got time if Vicki has that list to talk about that today as opposed to having another special meeting. But if everybody else wants another special meeting, I guess we can do that. But if you've got the list, I think we're familiar enough with the numbers to be able to say what we want to do, but that's up to you guys.
Good. Well, it's not on the agenda. Discussion of we got this to approve there. Can that fall under this? Do we need to do that before we take action?
No, because you're approving the provisional budget as published, as presented.
Right. Okay. So then we go into executive session, then come back out and discuss it? Is that something that's a possibility? Abby, you gotta...
No, if you want to have a discussion regarding the provisional budget and changes that will come, you would be fine to do that today. So you can either have your discussion about changes that will be forthcoming and then approve your budget, or you can take action and approve the provisional budget and then have a follow-up discussion about changes. It's all contained herein. The information is the same to the public. You just might be discussing whether you'll adjust some of the numbers. And then I would save your executive session until the end.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to allow Vicki some time to get those numbers and stuff too. So why don't we go ahead and take action here on the provisional budget, and then do you think we can go into executive session and do it afterwards, or the only thing I was thinking was allow Vicky some time to get
Right.
those information, compile that, and then we could call her back up here after we're done with executive session and have that discussion.
But the problem with that is then we're offline on the TV. I mean, I think that's if we're
Well-
going to do this, I think it maybe should be, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be on TV.
We have a special meeting, probably wouldn't
Wouldn't be
involve
on
that
TV,
either,
sure.
but is Vicky ready, or we got a couple loose ends? I mean, is it possible that we can see what they're gonna have before us?
Let's just
and we
take a
could
recess
respond?
and give her time to go get
Okay.
her figures.
Okay.
Let's vote
Well,
on this.
let's
and-
vote on this, and then we'll take a recess, and then we'll have further discussion on the budget, so. Okay, any further discussion on the provisional budget? We have a motion to approve the 2017 provisional budget for Brookings County, South Dakota, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Miller.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Wyseth.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And we will call recess here, and then we'll reconvene to discuss options.
Or we're
for
gonna
the
go
budget.
into executive session?
No, not yet. We're going to discuss the budget.
Oh, we're
as soon
gonna
as
do a
Vicki gets
recess,
back,
okay.
And then we'll go to executive session afterwards. All right, thank you. what contingency is for. What concerns me with contingency is if we start spending over contingency.
We're back in
So right
business.
now, we still have $300,000. It's not, and that means it's a good contingency fund. That's a good number. I don't want to have 1.5 million sitting in contingency, and our thing goes up. I mean, I want that contingency to be at a low level.
It was in
That is
1981
workable
when the
for it. Now, if we come in and
And I used to
contingency
have
of
horses.
500,000, and we
Okay, you know, when that's
we,
out.
Where are we?
And
Prisoner
I was
rations?
riding my car,
issues.
Oh.
the guy that owns the place runs out and is screaming, "Your car's on fire! Your car's on fire!" I come up there and
Did it work?
there's my car. Just caught on fire.
Test.
I don't know
Oh,
why.
we're on.
I think we were cutting the sheriff's budget.
Good job.
The brakes quit and everything, and it's rolling into his barn, you know. And it was the
Okay.
4th of July. They were doing the fire.
Yep, I think we're back on here.
Okay, we should be, it's still booting, but as soon as we get up, then I can bring the screen back up. Then at least we got our mics back.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we got them all here too. Prisoner rations.
I don't know why that screen's not coming up. So I think it's just waiting here. It should pop up here. It's there. It's just, okay, it's getting lighter now. It's like, it's coming. It's coming. Slowly but surely. There it is. Okay.
Okay, what's our next one?
It's the county jail budget, prisoner ration, and also the salaries because of the overtime, and, you know, it's just taking more time in the jail. We increased it already, 93,000, the whole budget, the salaries, everything. But I think that maybe increasing it another 40,000 for next year, not knowing what we're gonna be having.
And we would put that towards the ration.
Rations and salaries, both.
Okay. And so where's the salaries? Usually the salaries. What's changing the salaries? You said overtime.
Overtime.
Okay. Sheriff, what's your? Is this an unusual year? Is this something you anticipate? I guess you know with increasing salaries, you anticipate more overtime continuing like this.
Some of it has to do with bringing in part-time help because of the felonies. It's just taking more help to. When I have that large a group, it takes two to open a cell door, and it takes two to do a rec, and I got to bring in extra help to make sure that the inmates are safe and employees are safe. So with our jail population, I just had an increase of putting someone on, and then of course my transport, or I should say my court security officer, he ends up doing a lot of the transports too. He's called in the middle of the night to do transports for the Yankton and so forth. So there's some overtime with that.
Mm-hmm.
The way things are going, I think it probably it's going to be busy next year too. Probably this is probably
The norm.
it's going to be the norm right now.
Larry, you have comments or anything like that? Okay.
I was gonna say the same thing Marty did.
Okay. Okay. What's everybody's thoughts of 40,000 towards some salary and then prisoner ration? What are we looking at? You thinking increases? How are you splitting that out?
I believe so. We don't have that breakdown up here, so sorry. Yeah, I don't have the breakdown, just the total on the budget.
Okay.
So we'd have to look at it closer to see what how we'll get it divided. And once we do this, we'll send it to you. And if you have any questions or problems with it, you know, get back to us and we can do it. But I'm just thinking an overall 40,000 and that should
Okay.
cover it.
Okay.
And then the only other thing I'm looking at is contingency, if we would want to increase that. Because right now, we're at 5%, plus I believe it's a 45,000 for East Central if they, you know, come across that we can give them more money if they.
Yeah.
So we may want to increase a little bit the contingency so we are make sure we have enough.
Well, I guess my thought on contingency is we're going to be using about half of it now for this year. Pretty
That we
close.
know of, and we've got other things on there, like Brenda's, in our
Yeah.
office, her wages and computers, so that's 5,000. Bob's truck, we've got contingency, and there's a few more items that
Right.
we do.
I guess my thought on contingency is I'd like to try to be as accurate as possible. I know it's contingency, but I don't want to, we're changing our budget now to cover these expenses. So
Yeah.
theoretically, we shouldn't have to go in contingency the same amount we're doing this year. We should have that budgeted now for next year. And I just don't want to overestimate the contingency and get the mill levy back up when we're not necessarily sure we need it. I'd like it. Then again, that's just my opinion. Everybody else has, their own on it, but I like the idea that our mill levy is going down. We have extra dollars in there, and I'd like to pass that on, that lower mill levy to there, and not increase our contingency since we budgeted for it. We're already taking some of that out of there and budgeting for it. But that's just I'd open it up for anybody else has any comments or disagreement on that, or agreement, whatever.
I agree with that myself. Is this the time we talk about transfers, or do we only talk budget now? What about the detention center? That's what I'm curious about. Do we do something on that now,
I think at the end of the year,
or is
don't
that an end of the year thing? I'm talking about the building fund for the detention center.
We have $2 million set aside for the jail expansion.
Yes.
And if we wanted to transfer more of money into that, when would we do
At the end
that?
of the year.
That's typically at the end of the year. Then we have a really good idea of where
Where we
we're
are.
at with the budget and if we have extra dollars and how much we can afford to transfer at that time.
Okay.
One thing, Brenda was here last week, and she was looking at our budget. It's been probably 15 years ago, where we have that $150,000 designated for juvenile detention center. And she said that should be something that we have to look at. We could transfer it into the actual detention center or put it in unassigned, because she says when you assign something, it's for a specific project, and they don't like to see it in there more than 8 to 10 years. And this has already been in there at least 15. It was back when Barb Talcamp. And so it's something we will have to bring to the board, but you can think about it if you'd want to move that into just the regular detention center or unassigned.
And when we have that conversation, remember they're going to come back to us next year, they being the JDC people, for their remodel. And so that might be, if we were going to contribute on our pro rata basis like we did to the last remodel down there, maybe that would be funds we'd look at for that.
And just to kind of, I guess, when we've started budgets, we used to see some padding in the budgets, and we've gotten them all down to really bare bones. And I think this year is some of the reason why we are probably going a little bit over. I looked at all the salary lines. We're spot on with salaries. And this is the first year that we've been spot on with that. But at the end of the year, we have to take 1 week out of, this year's salary. So we may be putting a little more in there. But I think we're finally getting to the place where we really need to be in the budget. And like these unforeseen things that we have, nobody could predict that. So, and that's what we want to use contingency for.
Absolutely.
But I do think that, looking at the budget, we're really very close to budgeting what we are spending.
Good.
So
we've used 213 of that 559, or 659. How does the rest of that show up in the budget then?
it would be as cash applied, right.
Okay, so not going to do anything on contingency, we'll just keep that the way it is.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put those together, we'll get together and do that, and then we'll send it out so you can look at it. And
Okay.
then it'll be approved at the next meeting.
Okay. Anything else anybody wanted to bring up on the budget? All right. Good discussion. I guess I would look for a motion to go into executive session then.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't.